Okay. I'm going to start with a window, and I'm going to show you how to do the quadratic curve. I'm going to show you how to do the reciprocal curve. So here's a window. Now, you've already learned to fold paper. Your vertical folds, you're going to do one in the middle. And you're going to do one where you bring the left edge over to the middle, so it's halfway between the left edge and the middle. And another, that was the right edge, halfway between the right edge and the middle. Another one here, halfway between the left edge and the middle. Okay, that's familiar. Those are the ones we used for the exponential curve. Already, my graph isn't perfect because this strip here is a little fatter than this strip. These two strips are about right. This line should have really been a little further to the right, but that's not going to kill us. If you're off by that much in sketching one of these, I'm not going to get excited about it, okay? Now, you remember when we did the folds, we did what it goes. Yep. Okay. And we did the center, the middle fold. And then we brought the left edge over and we made this fold here, which corresponds to this line. And then we brought that fold over to the center and drew this line so that the next line goes halfway between the center and the line just to its right. And we're going to then do the same thing on the line to the left of the center. We go halfway to this line. Now, if your spacing from here to here is the same as your spacing from here to here, you're just slopping down lines at regular intervals, and that's not going to get you any points, okay? You have to understand how the folds work and have to understand that this line is halfway between these two, and that makes these lines twice as close as these lines, okay? But other than that, it's just like the exponential graph, except we add these two construction lines. So now we have 5 construction lines, and we have the boundary lines. Let me extend the boundary lines while I'm thinking about that, because we always want to have the boundary lines extended so we can label them. Don't worry about labeling later. Okay. So now type 2 graph or type 2 grid. Remember I said before, when we did the top to bottom, and then halfway from that to the bottom, and halfway from that to the bottom, and so forth, we did 4 of those. It's a little tricky to do 5 of them. I can actually probably do the 5th one. Let's just see. Just the paper is getting kind of short here. It's kind of hard to make it right. But I think that's fairly well done. Okay, so you see we've got, I hope you can see it. Pretty clear if we look from the back. We've now got 5 folds. 1, 2, 3, 4, and that 5th one. Okay, whether you see it or not, you understand that those folds always go halfway to the bottom. So halfway from the top to the bottom, you're a little insecure about that. Just move your fingers at the same speed, see where they come together. And then look at it and see if that looks about right. Looks a little high to me, but it's okay. And halfway between there and there, here would be your 2nd fold. Your 3rd fold is halfway between here and here. By cutting this region in half. It looks a little high here, so I'm not doing all that great. Okay, that's 3 folds. Here's a 4th. And here's a fifth. And each of the spaces here, spacing between here and here is twice as great as the spacing here. And then this space is half of this, and this space is half of this, and so everything works out. So that if we now follow the rule for constructing the parabolic graph, we start in the upper left-hand corner like I accidentally did previously. We move one line to the right and two lines down. One line to the right and two lines down. One line to the right and two lines down, which puts us on the lower edge. And then we go one line to the right and two lines up. One to the right and two up. Okay, one to the right and two up. We end up in the upper edge. We sketch a nice, smooth curve. And there's a half decent parabola. I didn't quite hit that point. Okay, and there are things that we can do with this and that you will do within the first couple of days of class. Probably not on the first day, but maybe. Okay, so there we have it. Right there is your type 2 grid with parabolic or quadratic curve. The only difference between the type 2 and the type 1 grid, well, if we look at the type 1 grid here, we've only got 3 folds. Here we've got the same 3 folds, but we've got 2 more folds between the center and the fold to the right and the fold to the left. And we've also folded it 5 times down toward the bottom instead of 4. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 construction lines, whereas here we only have 4 construction lines. Now I'm going to show you quickly the type 3 grid, which is actually maybe the simplest. But there are some special things about the curve that we get. And it's not a great square, you know, just not a great rectangle. Anyhow, so we're going to divide it in half vertically. That'll be about here. And then we're going to divide each of those halves in half. And then halfway from the center to the line to the right. Halfway from the center to the line on the left. And there are vertical construction lines. If you practice it a little bit and then do a little bit of, give yourself a little critical feedback. Does that look right? Are these things all twice as close as these are and these? Okay. Well, then what we do horizontally is you cut it in half horizontally, the horizontal line. Okay. And then you go from the lower edge to the center. Halfway from the upper edge to the center. In other words, what we did is identical to what we did before so far. So we get the center line halfway from the edge to the center, halfway from the edge to the center, and then halfway from the center line to the line directly above it. And halfway from the center line to the line directly below it. Okay. And then we draw our curve. Now the rule of this curve, and I'm actually going to introduce something. I'm going to introduce the red dot Okay, just to keep us oriented, the red dot for type 3 graph is right in the middle. The red dot for type 2 grid is on the lower edge at the middle. That would be what you call the vertex of the parabola. And for type 1 grid, the red dot is again at the lower edge at the center. Same place for the exponential curve. Now that red dot just helps a little bit with locating points on the graph because you can see clearly where the center line is. And what we do is we start at the left edge on the line directly below the center line and we make a mark. Then we move one line to the right, one line down, one line to the right and one line down. Now notice we're going to the right and down, to the right and down. We could do another line halfway between this and the center. We could go one to the right and one line down. The lines are getting twice as far apart, so the next point would be way down here. Well, I'm just mentioning that. You don't have to know that. Okay, maybe later in the course you will, but right now you don't. But the reason I say that is there's a reason why within this window you don't go any further than this. Okay, now this line got a little bit too close to this line compared to this one, so the curve doesn't have a perfect shape, but it still has about the right shape. Okay. I'll just say that we could continue the rule. We go twice as close to the center and twice as far down. Then twice as close to the center and twice as far down. After about 30 steps, we reach the center of the earth. But we never get to the center line. Okay? Never get to it. Well, in the same sense, if we start on the right edge, on the construction line just above the center line, and move one left, one up, and one left, and one up. Well, that's just kind of backwards of what we did here. And then we can connect these 3 points. Not real well done, but there it is. Okay, so this is a type 3 grid with a reciprocal. Reciprocal shape. And I like to use the word shape instead of curve. So I'm even gonna make a correction here. I'm going to refer to this as the I got a little messed up there, but parabolic or quadratic shape. If we look here, I said exponential curve. There's nothing wrong with exponential curve, but I try to stick to the idea of the shape that we've constructed. Getting too much cleaner on the. Okay, so this be the exponential shape. Okay. Now I said a little more than I intended to, but it just came out naturally. We see how to construct a type 1 grid and the rule for the exponential shape. I'll have that rule written out. You won't have to remember it just now, but you will because you're going to draw a bunch of these. You're going to draw them in class. You're going to draw them for homework. You're going to get good at drawing them quickly and with reasonable accuracy. Okay, so there's the exponential shape, the parabolic shape on a type 2 grid, the reciprocal shape we just done on a type 3 grid. So your task is going to be learn to construct these shapes. Okay, you'll get an assignment to see these videos and be able to answer certain questions and be able to do things when you come to class. Because another thing you can expect in this course is every time you come to class, there's going to be a quiz over what you were supposed to do. Okay. And it's going to be pretty predictable. You know, it's going to be something that you did for homework and probably not one of the hard things. Probably one of the basic things you did for homework, okay? And after our first class, depending on how much we actually talk about this, you can expect to be able to do at least one or two of these grids with the shapes on a quiz when you come into the next class. But we'll see how that works out. We'll be specific about that when we see how the class works and everything else.